and gentlemen, and welcome. A very happy new year to you all as we are entering 2021 with Frankly Speaking Sports. We want to thank you all for joining us today live right now from the Apex Gift Card Studios. That's right, on beautiful new Apex Gift Card Studio. Want to let you know that they're the major sponsor of Frankly Speaking Sports. And if you want some great gift cards at a great price, go to apexgiftcard.com. Type in the word Frankly Speaking. The F needs to be capitalized, and you will get a 10% off on your entire purchase. Now remember, there's only one coupon per purchase, but Apex Gift Card, they take care of all your entertainment needs, from concerts to restaurants, all different gift cards. You name it, they have it. Go to apexgiftcard.com. Want to welcome everyone to a very happy Monday here. What a great show we have lined up for you tonight. As I move some stuff quickly around here, we got a great show for you tonight. Tonight we're gonna be talking lots of Buccaneer football tonight. Lots and lots of Buccaneer football tonight. But we're also gonna be talking to a gentleman who played in the 1969 World Series. You know him as Mr. Met. He played from the first year they ever existed, 1962 to 1979. In about 20 minutes, we're gonna have New York Met great 1969 World Series champion Eddie Kranepool will be joining us live. What a great show it's going to be tonight. So please, for those of you that are currently on right now, if you can please do me a big favor, go ahead, share this to your timeline. We got an incredible show for you tonight. And it starts off with the conclusion of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season yesterday as they defeated the Falcons 44-27. The Bucs on the year finish 11-5. At the 7-9 year, they finish 11-5. They play at Washington versus the Washington football team Saturday night, 8:20 p.m. And we'll keep you updated on a couple of status. I know everybody is concerned about Michael Evans. Michael Evans, as of now, has a knee injury. There is no structural damage. He is day-to-day. Jay Glazer says he's feeling good. He's walking in a pool, which is a very good sign. So as of now, if everything continues to go well as it is, we could see Michael Evans probably playing this Saturday at 8:20 p.m. for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, I want to let everybody know we sent to Frankly Speaking Sports, and you'll see it on your timeline right now if you're watching the show. If you want to leave comments, you can leave comments, but allow permission to Be.Live to use your name instead of like our good buddy Tommy, I know is on from Temple Terrace, but it says YouTube user. If you want them to use your name like Tommy, go ahead and allow permission to Be.Live, and we'll get to know who it is. And guys, we have a show that is so incredible for you today. Michael Evans is playing. Yesterday became the first player in Buccaneer history, 7th straight season of 1,000 or more yards. Unbelievable. Antonio Brown, got an extra bonus. If you guys were wondering what was going on late in that game, why were they doing all these different passes to Antonio Brown, he has a clause in his contract that says he makes another $250,000 if he has 45 catches. Well, guess what? He got 45 catches, got an extra $250,000, and he was 11 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady, 40 touchdown passes in the season. The guy keeps getting better and better. If there's anybody out there that has not been convinced yet that this guy is the greatest of all time, I don't know what the heck you've been watching. I just don't know what the heck you've been watching. 26 of 41, 399 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Ronald Jones ran hard. He didn't get his 100 yards. but he got 78 yards and 12 carries and a touchdown. Godwin, 5 receptions, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. You know, if you talk about a team going into the playoffs, and I talked about this 4 weeks ago, I thought the Bucs would win out, and they should win out. And guess what they did? They did win out. They came in, they won out, and they won out convincingly. And remember, we said this 4 weeks ago. It's not the team who is 15-1 or 11-5 or is 8-8 or is 6-10 going into the playoffs. It's the team that is going into the playoffs playing the best football. You know, throughout the year, for the first 12 games of the season, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the best football. But you know what? They have shown over the last 4 weeks, they have no momentum going into the playoffs against the Browns, who they just lost to this weekend. Whereas on the flip side, you take an 11-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneer team, and they have all this momentum, and they are just clicking on every offensive cylinder. Now, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. We are playing Washington, and we'll go into that a little bit later. And, you know, I really don't care how Washington got there. I know there's a lot of criticism, skepticism on what happened yesterday night and how they got in. But don't rule out this team. Just because this team is, you know, 6 wins, I believe 6-10 during the regular season, it is the playoffs. Every single team in the playoffs is there for a reason. And should we beat the Redskins? Sure, we should beat them. But there's other teams we should have beat that we had trouble with too. Now, I think we should win convincingly. But the one thing that we're going to have to clear up, and I've been saying it since week 1, is our pass defense. Again, yesterday, in a very bright day where we had some great plays, some great things going on, we still had opportunities, especially on the pass defense side of the football. Now, there was some great plays made, like Sean Murphy-Button with that strip was just gorgeous and beautiful. One of the better ones I've seen all year. But we still give up yards to Pat Ryan. And, you know, Alex Smith, we're going into a team now in Washington that is not very good offensively, but is one heck of a team on the defensive side of the ball, which we'll talk later in the week. But right now, you know, we are definitely going to have to do something with the pass defense. And, you know, I noticed something about our defense, and I think I want to share it with everyone, and I'm not sure. I'd love to get some comments on what you all think, but it seems like, you know, especially the last 2 games when we've gotten a lead, and we've gotten a lead early, it seems like our defense starts playing a little bit more aggressively and takes some more chances, which I like some of that I'm seeing. So, you know, as it is, and we said it all year, the key is getting to these quick starts. So love to see them go into Washington and get a quick start. Another thing that was concerning, even though it was the last game of the season, was the Falcons did execute 7 of 14 third down plays and 2 of 3 on 4th down. So that's pretty much 9 of 17. You know, our defense has to step up on third down. That's the difference between 4 more plays. You know, you want your defense off the field, being fresh. Well, if they keep that, you know, giving up 50% of third down efficiency to the opponents, it's not a formula for success. Now, if you ask me who's the hottest team going in the playoffs, it's the Bucs. It's the Bucs. It's the Bucs. But we still, if there's something that we need to be cautious of, it's that pass defense. You know, if you want to give an MVP out for this season, give it to the offensive line. Give it to that offensive line. That offensive line has been incredible, led by rookie Tristan Wirfs. I mean, what's he given up? 1 sack the entire year as a rookie. That is just phenomenal. Incredible how he can do that. I mean, just very, very, very incredible. And, you know, you talk about some of the game highlights. We talked about first Tom Brady, you know, 40 touchdown passes. Let's go ahead and hear from the quarterback for a little bit.
Hey, Tom, congratulations. Can you take us through just the swing of emotions? You've been in this game a long time, but, you know, Mike getting an NFL record and then hurting his knee, but then, you having guys like Godwin and Brown to step up and make huge plays for you today.
Yeah, it's always tough when you see guys go out, and Mike's proud of him for everything that he's, gone through this year and what he's fought through, and it's an incredible record to have. So toughness, dependability, not obviously skill, but attitude plays a big factor into those things, and just love playing with the guy. So, and he went out, other guys really stepped up, made a bunch of plays. Chris keeps making plays. Scotty did a good job. Tyler made some plays. Gronk, Cam, everyone. AB obviously. So just got to keep it going. We got a big one next week. It all comes down to one game. It's now that the regular season's over. It's about it's one football game. Who plays well? Who executes when the pressure's on?
Go to Jim.
Hey, Tom, congratulations. Can you just speak to the impact that Mike has had on your transition coming here without an off season and all that? I mean, 13 touchdown catches is no easy feat.
Yeah.
It seems he was very dependable for you. Can you just speak to his impact on your transition?
Yeah, consistent, dependable, tough, great playmaker, great attitude, great teammate, selfless, never talks about his own accomplishments. Just a great it's great for him to be a part of, what we got going. So I love everything I see, from him from a quarterback standpoint, and just his attitude. And
how can't you love it? I mean, how can you not love it? Now, for those of you people, those of the individuals that may have not actually seen the game yesterday, Mike Evans did get injured. It is nothing structural. He is day-to-day. Good chance he's going to play. Let's go ahead and show you about a minute worth of highlights from yesterday's game here.
Last one. Got finished with a bang.
That even though they're in, they want to win today, get that top wild card spot. The cannons are firing at Raymond James Stadium.
Brady has all kinds of throws a deep pass far sideline toward Godwin. It's caught. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans becomes the first NFL player to record 1,000 yards or more in his first 7 seasons and won a throw by Brady. Flushed out of the pocket, looks downfield, throws downfield. It is caught. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Antonio Brown. Rojo off like a touchdown Tampa Bay. Ronald Jones the second.
Antoine Winfield, he loves contact.
Brown will score a touchdown Tampa Bay. The tackle made immediately. The ball comes out. It comes out. The Bucs have recovered.
Yeah, just an incredible thing. And we told you about yesterday that Michael Evans hurt himself yesterday, and it looks like he will be able to play. Let's go ahead and see what his teammate Chris Godwin had to say about his buddy.
Hey, Chris, congratulations. It's a game of emotion, right? I mean, Mike has the NFL record catch, and on the next play, he gets knocked out of the game, and who knows for how long. Just what was your emotions when that happened, and how do you feel for Mike right now?
Man, like you said, it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions. He breaks the record, and that's something that, a guy being here for 4 years and watching him kind of close in on that. I'm so proud, just of the man that Mike is and the way he works. So I think that's really awesome. And then, like you said, next play, he goes down. So, it hurts. I feel for my brother, but I'm hoping that he'll make a speedy recovery.
And for you and Antonio to step up the way you did, what has been working, particularly with the deep balls that we've seen these last 3-4 weeks?
Honestly, I just think that it comes down to our repetitions in practice. I think as the year obviously has progressed, we've started to, work on that more and more and just start to get more familiar with what Tom is looking for. He's familiar with our body language and stuff now. So I think you're starting to see, the fruits of that labor kind of come to fruition.
Thanks.
Go to Jenna Lane.
Hey, Chris, I don't know if I can think of a better way to honor a fallen teammate than 133 receiving yards. Can you just speak to the impact that Mike has had on you and your growth as a player and what you've blossomed into?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if words can really describe that. You know, Mike, he's been such a great teammate to me, you know, from the day that I got here.
You know, he's helped
you know, he's helped instill confidence in me and help, you know, guide me in my early career. You know, he's been, like I say, he's been a great teammate. He's a brother of mine. You know, watching him go to work and watching him be so dominant, you know, I've been able to take things from his game and apply them to mine. So, you know, I took my hat off to Mike. He knows how I feel about him. You know, but now, you know, I'm glad he's getting the recognition.
Yeah, and well-deserved recognition. When you talk about a guy 7 years in a row, and everybody was worrying about Mike Evans this year. He may not get 1,000 yards. Antonio Brown's here now. We got too many receivers. Well, shame on you all, because Michael Evans, again, 7 years in a row, 1,000 yards. Talk about Antonio Brown. You know, how many of you yesterday, when you saw Mike Evans get injured, said, thank goodness we have Antonio Brown? All of a sudden, everybody out there was happy that Antonio Brown was on the team. And we said this when Antonio Brown came in. If you have an opportunity to make your team better, then you do it. And that's what they did. He had 11 catches, 138 yards yesterday, Antonio Brown, and he also had 2 touchdowns. But one of our Facebook users said Bruce Arians made it seem like Devin White won't play next Sunday. He won't, because it's next Saturday. He's 1 day shy of the protocol in the NFL, so Devin White will be a scratch Saturday night for the 8 o'clock game. If the game had been played on Sunday instead of Saturday, Devin White would have been allowed to play. And for those of you not sure on how that works, it's the extra day. It's 9 days versus 10 days, and the protocol calls for 10 days. So no Devin White. But, you know, this is a game where, and don't get me wrong, Devin White's a big piece of our defense. But this is a game where we are playing an offense, probably one of the weaker offenses that we had played. And for those of you who saw that game last night, the despicable, disgusting thing done by Doug Peterson, which I'm not going to go into detail now. Nevertheless, believe it or not, the Philadelphia Eagles, excuse me, could have done you a favor, because you're probably the hottest team in the NFC East right now that would have been going into the playoffs would have been the New York Giants, who, you know, after a terrible start, have been playing great football. They are out of it now because of that move by Doug Peterson last night to put in the no-name quarterback at the end of in the fourth quarter, which doesn't make sense. But like I said, we're not going to discuss that. So now we're playing a team that has a very, very weak offense. Now, don't lay down yet, folks, and think we have a win, because we played teams before with our defense, and no discredit, our defense does come up with some big plays, but when it comes to the passing game, which they are a passing team almost 100% of the time, the Washington Redskins, we have not been very successful. So we need to really dig down hard this week, figure this out, because, you know, it's going to guide us. Our offense is going, you know, the way I say it is our offense is going to guide us through the playoffs, however far we go. But it's going to come down to our defense to win these games. So, you know, we're going to really, really, really need our defense to step it up. And they do a great job against the rush. They do some great jobs when Todd Bowles puts pressure on the quarterback. And I think you're going to see a heck of a lot of pressure this Saturday night by Todd Bowles on Alex Smith. You know, right now it's Alex Smith or bust for them. So, you know, this is a team we should go into and really dominate on our offense side of the ball. I mean, but remember, they do have a tough defense. So even though we should still be able to score points, and I think, excuse me, it's scratching the throat there, and we should prevail. Now, in about 4 minutes, we're going to have former New York Met great Eddie Kranepool joining us. So if you see me looking around, I'm checking my phone, making sure that Eddie can get on. You know, sometimes we do have some issues on the other people's side of the audio, on the computers and stuff. So sometimes when you do that, you have difficulties. So we'll keep an eye on our phone. But I'd love to get some comments on what you all think. It's a new year. Let's get involved. I do have a clip here that we will play a little bit later in the show. From Coach Bruce Arians. So those of you Buck fans, don't go away. I know we have a great New York Met interview coming on with Eddie Kranepool, and then we're going to hear from Bruce Arians after Eddie, after our interview with Eddie Kranepool. So that'll be coming up in a little bit. As I once again, we talk about Eddie Kranepool. Eddie Kranepool was one of those New York Mets that were incredible. If you look right here, I got a picture here. That is a picture that is currently right now on my wall in my office of Eddie Kranepool. I grew up, I was born in '66. Eddie was already with the Mets for 4 years. What a great, 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 childhood I had watching the Mets with Tom Seaver, Jerry Kuzman, and, this picture I've had since the, obviously, the early 70s of Eddie Kranepool. And, one of my favorite Mets of all time is definitely Eddie Kranepool, who is in the New York Mets Hall of Fame as well. So, I'm really, really looking forward to having Eddie on in the next 2 minutes here. And hopefully we'll be able to get him per video. If not, we will get him through phone. So about 2 or 3 minutes away from Eddie Kranepool being on. And we do got some videos of some of his highlights and everything. But then after that, we're going to hear from Bruce Arians on the Bucs win yesterday. How they, his opinion of the game, what he thought about, Mike Evans, what's he's hearing about the latest maybe we'll get from him in regards to Mike Evans as well. It looks like about a minute away from having Eddie on. And let me let Eddie know that I am ready. So we'll give it another minute here and see if he comes on. Otherwise, we'll get him on the phone here. But it should be in about a minute here. Told him, I believe, 9:25. So it's about that time right now. So we should have him on any second. But as we wait for Eddie, guys, for those of you that like baseball and that love baseball, we're about a month and a half from pitches and catches reporting. And the latest news out of Major League Baseball is there will be 162 games this year, a full season. And not only will there be a full season, but we will also have spring training starting on time. So let me go ahead and get to this. We're just waiting for the camera to work on right now. We don't see the camera on so we'll give it a couple seconds. So as he tries to get on here, camera. So we're trying right now. All right. So let me try pulling it up and see if his camera does come on for us. I'm not sure if it will. No camera yet. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So as Eddie tries to come on, I know he has my number. He'll try to come on here in a moment. Love to get some comments. Like I said, we'll be hearing from Bruce Arians. Eddie Kranepool is a minute away from coming on. So we'll see if, like I said, if Eddie can't come on that way, we'll definitely get him on the phone. So no big deal there. So we'll give him one more. There's somebody. All right. He's coming back in. So it should be one moment, folks. But anyway, as I was saying, the baseball season will be 162 games. Spring training will start on time. So the first game, they're planning on having 162 games, and they are expecting fans in the stands. So the fans should be in the stands. And for those of you that, always know, 2 weeks from the Super Bowl is the start of spring training. As you can see behind me in our new office, I do have Go Bolts. I have the Buccaneers here, the Rays here. So our beautiful Apex gift card studio is looking terrific. So, by the way, for those of you looking for all different gift card needs, whether you need to buy gift cards for department stores, restaurants, you name it, apexgiftcard.com. You type in frankly speaking. Let's see if we can pull that up again, guys. There you go. You go to apexgiftcard.com. Type in frankly speaking. The only letter has to be a capital F. Let me go ahead and get this phone. Eddie's calling. So stay with.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
Good, Eddie. Let me go ahead and get this going here for you a minute. I'm going to switch this up.
Yeah, wait a minute, because it says here something went wrong. We couldn't get in. I don't know what the hell's wrong with this shit.
Yeah, I know, man. You know how technology is. Well, let me put up. Well, you're on the phone here. Now we are on live on the phone. Right. So that'll be fine. We'll go ahead and just do it over the phone. How's that sound?
Yeah, because I can't get it up on the computer, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on.
That's all right. We got you on. We're happy to have you, Eddie. Eddie, first of all, thank you so very, very much. Right after the holidays for coming on with us. It is definitely an honor to have you on our show tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being on.
Eddie, we think about times, and I grew up in Long Island. I was born in '66, and ever since I've been a Met fan, it's been Eddie Kranepool, Eddie Kranepool, Eddie Kranepool. Ever since the time I was born. Let me ask you this. When you look back, Eddie, did you ever think 1962, you're 17 years old, and in September, you're called up to the expansion New York Mets? What was that like at the age of 17?
Well, the first couple of times I went out on the field, I was nursed into it. Casey brought me in late for defense. I got out there, my legs were shaking, a little nervous. Then he told me if I was going to start a ball game on a Saturday, he gave me about 3 days' notice, I guess, to get all my nerves settled down. And finally, I did. I started a ball game against the Chicago Cubs at 17 years of age, and it was exciting. It was fun to play for Casey. He was a great manager, and he was a great person to be around because he loved the young players and wanted to see them develop. And he brought myself along, and then as the years went on, we kept adding younger players to the mix, and of course it made it a lot of fun for myself after the first 2 years, because in the beginning I had guys my roommate was Frank Thomas, who was 35 years of age, and myself being 17, you don't have a whole lot in common with them, and most of the guys on our ball club were of the older generation, and they were twice my age, so it was a long, tough season, and it was a long season for me because on the road, I had nobody to hang out with. My first friend was Ronnie Spoder, and then Tug McGraw, and then, of course, Jerry Jerry Kuzman and the rest of the crew all came along, and we wound up developing it into a pretty good ball club.
Now, let me ask you, as a youngster, you're 17 years old, you know the team is starting to get young players, but how frustrating, Eddie, was it to go through those early years with an expansion ball club not winning many games?
Well, as it turns out, it was probably the toughest thing to do for the simple reason that when you first sign a contract, you've been a pretty good player throughout your Sandlot career and high school career, and you expect to win and you expect to be on a positive situation. But of course, with the Mets, there was never anything good enough because one player can't bring a ball club into a timid situation. So it made it very difficult. No matter what you did, there was mostly negative publicity surrounding the ball games because when you lose 100 games for 7 years in a row, you know, there's not a lot of good things to write about. So they wrote all the negative information out there and made it difficult to play because, you know, they never wrote if you got 2 or 3 hits, it wasn't good enough because somebody lost the ball game and there was a reason to write about it. So it was very tough until 1968. We made a managerial change. Gil Hodges came aboard. We made a great trade there, trading some players for Gil. And of course, he turned the whole situation around in a little over a year. He came over in 68. He was the manager in 69 in the spring training. He said, guys, last year we had a tough year, but if we win some of those close games that we were out there in, and you learn how to play the game correctly, we're going to be competitive. And by mid-season, we were competitive. We were catching up with the league and all developing the side at the same time. And of course, we had a great pitching staff, you know, with the nucleus of Kuzman and Seaver as 1-2. But we had other guys that was waiting in the wings. We had a guy like Eric Gentry. He had a great arm. We had a kid named Nolan Ryan that was coming out of the bullpen because he wasn't going to be starting every 4th day. You don't replace Seaver. And he didn't develop in New York, but he became a superstar. And so we had great arms, and it became fun to play. It was the first time, you know, since I signed that baseball was fun again.
Yeah, now, Ed, before we get into the 1969 year, I meant to ask you at the beginning of the show while I was getting you on. I mean, how are you feeling? I know you had the kidney transplant about a year ago. I mean, how is everything going? I mean, are you feeling healthy again?
I'm feeling great. It's been 18 months, knock on wood. Everything is going correctly, and I'm taking care of myself from the standpoint that, you know, I've been inside for the last 9 months. This COVID situation has got everybody completely baffled, and I'm getting tired of being in, but you've got to watch yourself. I'm vulnerable because I take a lot of medication for anti-rejection, and I've got to be careful because my immune system is not the best. But I feel good, and I'm ready to get out and go to the ballpark. I hope there's a season this year. I know with the new ownership the Mets have, they should be exciting. I would imagine they're going to go after a couple of free agents because they only need a few guys. They've got a nucleus of young kids that look like they've been developing, and they're going to be good. So if the Mets add 1 or 2 key players, I think they can be very competitive this year.
Eddie, how important is it to a former player like yourself who played in the early years to have the team when they win after that, meaning the 86 Mets, the 2015 Mets who lost to the Royals? But how important is it how do you feel as a former player when even the guys that have played after you are getting to the World Series?
Well, it's fun to watch. Being a New Yorker my whole life, I've been a New York fan. I grew up as a Yankee fan, being brought up in the Bronx. But then when I signed with the Mets, my allegiance turns to the National League, and I only played in the National League. So you become a fan. And later on, when I retire, I like to watch the game of baseball. I'm not the greatest fan because I don't cheer and jump around like most people. I enjoy watching the game. I enjoy the good plays on both ball clubs, and I react to that. But it's fun watching the ball club that you played for and you have allegiance to it, and I still do public relations for them, do well. It makes it more exciting in New York. And it's a great town to be in. It's a great baseball town. They never forget the winning situations. The New York fans are tremendous as far as baseball is concerned. They know the game. So when you walk around New York and it's a positive attitude and a winning ball club, they reflect upon the times you were there and the good times. And of course, they bring up today's players and they ask you to critique them and see what you have to say. And I don't like to say anything negative about any of the current players. But, you watch them and you have fun. And I've got close to some of the guys because I do have access to the ballpark and I have access to the clubhouse under the Wilpon family who took over after I retired. I was allowed to go around the stadium. So it's been a fun existence.
Well, let's go back to 1969. Let me ask you this, Eddie. When you were playing on that team, when was it that you actually felt that during that year that, darn it, we may be good enough to win this thing?
Well, in spring training, we didn't have any ideas of winning the World Series. We wanted to get to 500. That was our goal, and we got to 500 in June. And we got there by beating the California teams. We beat the Dodgers, the Giants, and San Diego 9 or 10 games in a row. And we came back to face Chicago Cubs in New York, who was in first place at the time. But we finally got a little bit above 500, and we faced them head to head, and we swept them 4 games. So their 10-game lead or 12-game lead that they had at the time dwindled down by 4 games. And we started to play great baseball in the second half of the season. We were a tremendous ball club because we all came together and we melded as a team, and it was great. And under the leadership of Gil, we certainly played the game the way you're supposed to. We didn't make mental mistakes. We were a good defensive ball club. And then, of course, with his disciplinarian style, we know how to play the game the way it was supposed to be played, and we didn't beat ourselves. We beat the other clubs, and we beat every ball club that we had to win against, including the Cubs. Every time we played the Cubs, we not only beat them, we swept them series. So you pick up a lot of ball games, and finally in September, we went head to head against them, and we beat them, and we were behind by 10, and we wound up winning by 10.
Talk about Tom Seaver and Jerry Koosman that year and what they meant to that pitching staff. Because I always thought growing up that the best left-handed pitcher that I've ever seen pitch in baseball, and I got to see it at Shea Stadium, of course, was Jerry Koosman.
Well, Jerry was a tremendous competitor, and he was the guy who really won out there in a tough ball game because he had nerves of steel, and when he went out on the mound, he dominated the ball clubs, and of course he took charge. He was the one that really put Chicago in its place. They were a ball club that was cocky. They had some great players, a number of Hall of Famers on the ball club, but they had a couple of guys that would like to joke around at the other team's expense. And, they used to like to knock players down, which they don't do anymore in baseball. But they pitch you tight and knock you off the plate. They did it a couple of times with our players. And they did it in the beginning of the series against Chicago in New York. And Koosman happened to be pitching, and the first hitter in the next inning was Ron Santo, and he threw a fastball that if Ronnie doesn't stick his wrist up, his arm up, it would have hit him right between the eyes. And that stopped all the knockdown pitches, and now the Chicago was throwing the ball out over the plate, and we started tattooing him. So he was the enforcer on our ball club. He was the one guy. Seaver was a great pitcher. He had great ability. When you ask Tom to knock somebody down, and most pitchers know when you want somebody to get knocked down, he would throw over their head, but it'd be about 2 feet over their head, where Jerry Koosman might throw it right between his shoulder blades.
Right. I want to play this little clip here for a minute, Eddie. I don't know if you're going to be able.
series home run that puts the Mets out in front 5-0.
Did you hear that?
No, I couldn't. So
Okay.
please tell me. Maybe I can.
Yeah, I know you'll be able to comment on it. That was game 3 of the World Series. You hit a home run over the right field wall. How special of a moment was that for you in 1969? You get to the World Series, you're on the biggest stage in New York City, and you hit a home run in game 3.
Well, that was a great feeling, and we were all pumped up for it for the simple reason that the left-handed hitters on the ball club won the playoffs against Atlanta, who our pitching staff kind of faltered a little bit, but we scored a lot of runs, 9, 10 games, 9 or 10 runs a game, and we were expecting to play in New York with Gil platooning all season. Of course, he continued to platoon. He started the right-handers the first 2 games, and we split. We were lucky to win the second game, and who was on the mound? The Fury Kuzma, who lose the first game with Tom Seaver. He comes back and pitches a great ball game, and we win. We come back to New York, and we face the ace of the Baltimore staff, Jim Palmer. You know, being right-handed, so all the left-handers who've been sitting on the bench for a couple of days now get a chance to play, and it was so hot in the playoffs. Well, we jumped on Jim Palmer and knocked him out. We scored 6 runs that game, and hitting a home run, you know, that you just fly around the bases. You're on cloud 9. This is the goal of every player that gets to the major leagues, you know, to get into the World Series, the opportunity to play in front of the largest crowd baseball's ever going to have. And we were out there having a good time. We were all about the same age. We were all about 25 years of age. We all grew up together. We were a close team. There was no I in team. Nobody felt any pressure. Everyone did their job. And when we played, we all platooned. Nobody liked it, but we all did our job because we respected Gil and the way he managed. And we performed, and we got knocked out. After scoring 6 runs, you would think that the manager might say, well, the next game we'll start the same lineup. We did a pretty good job. We won 6-0. He sat us back down on the bench, and he brought the right-handers back, and they all produced. And they did a great job, and we won the World Series handedly against Baltimore. After losing the first game, we beat them 4 straight. They didn't know what hit them, but of course they didn't expect our pitching staff came around in the World Series.
Right.
When you have guys like Noah and Ryan coming in relief, and you know the career this gentleman's had, it's been unbelievable. And we didn't see him develop in New York, but certainly, you know, we read an awful lot about him. He did his best work when he was out of New York.
Eddie, I have one of a big fan of yours from Long Island named Lou on the comment section, and it's kind of interesting because he had a similar question I was just about to ask you, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you for Lou. It's a 2-part question. He wants to know, first of all, if you have any good stories to tell about your experiences with Gil Hodges is part 1. And then number 2, we talked about 1969. Wants to know what your perspective of the 1973 NL pennant winning Mets was.
Well, the 73, let's take that question. The 73 team really reacted the same way the 69 ball club came. We had a ball club that was a good ball club, but we had a lot of injuries early in the season. And as the season progressed, we were all getting frustrated that we couldn't put a whole ball club on the field. We had so many guys on the injured reserve list. But late in the year, the end of July, we started getting healthy, and all the guys came back, and we all performed and played. Again, we were being platooned, this time by Yogi. But the only difference is when we got to the World Series, you know, we should have beat the Oakland A's. That's the biggest disappointment of my life because, you know, nobody forgets who finished second. They always win on who wins the World Series. When you're up 3-2 in the 6th game, and you have a guy like Seaver and the rest of the staff, and George Stone, who was probably our most valuable pitcher coming down the stretch, he was 12-3. He should have pitched the 6th game, and Yogi decides to go with Seaver, short-rested. Big mistake. The players knew it. Seaver knew it. And the only one that didn't know it was Yogi. And we pitched Seaver. We lose the 6th game. George Stone to this day hasn't pitched, and the Mets don't recover, and we lose the 7th game. Seaver gets knocked out. We could have left on Saturday night to come home. We knew we didn't have a good shot. Ziva was tired at the end of the year. Yogi, he just didn't get it. And you know what? It cost him because 2 years later, I think he got fired. The players never recovered from losing the World Series in '73. So it was a big disappointment. We should have won that one. Now, as far as myself playing for Gil was a very strict disciplinarian. And when he came over, he changed the whole atmosphere of the ballpark. But when you're around there so long, and I was there 7 years, you develop bad habits, and it's tough to change, and it's tough to take all that criticism. But you either played his way or you hit the highway, and I had my ups and downs with him. So did my roommate Ron Sabota, and sometimes, you know, we verbalized too much, and we, you know, talked about it or responded to Gil in a negative way, and he'd sit you down or send you out. He'd do whatever he had to. But he had one set of rules for 25 players. He was a great manager. He never made a mental mistake. And, you know, you're playing under him. You had to play good fundamental baseball, and we became a good team. We'd have won more pennants in New York with Gil Hodges, and I definitely know we would have won the '73 World Series. We wouldn't have made that mistake. A mistake in a short series can cost you the series. One mistake in a whole season doesn't matter because the best ball club's going to win under 162 games. But the short series, I want the best manager that's in the third innings thinking about moves he's going to make in the eighth inning, not vice versa like, you know, I feel Yogi was doing.
Now, when you first started with the Mets, did you ever think 17 years later that would be the only team that you ever played for?
Well, you don't think of that, especially when you're losing. The first couple of years, it gets tough. After a while, you never expect to win. And by the All-Star break, you're eliminated, so it becomes very frustrating. So it's not fun. You know, it's fun in the beginning when you get an opportunity to get to the major leagues. But, you know, winning is the only thing that's important from a baseball player standpoint. So you want to be out there winning. And every year, the same thing's happening. The second half of the season is the longest when you're eliminated and you have nothing to play for. So it got very old. And I thought before '69 I was going to get traded. And sometimes you look forward to it. And right before '69, I thought it was a good chance I was going to get traded. But it never came about, and I'm glad that it didn't. I stayed in New York. I played another 10 years after '69. And finally, I called it quits for the simple reason I had a lot of ups and downs. We were losing in the beginning, then we won, and then we lost a couple of years. We won again in '73. And then right after '73, we had another season where we were decent, but then we really went to the bottom, and, you know, everything went wrong. We started signing young players for long-term contracts. You know, baseball changed, and the ownership, Mrs. Payson, passed away. She let her daughter run the ball club, and unfortunately for them, they were signing young players to 5-year contracts who I didn't think deserved it. You know, when you're on a last-place team, you don't give longevity contracts, 5-year contracts, because the complacency comes in. You know, there's only a few guys you can give a long-term contract. Maybe a guy like Pete Rose, who played hard regardless of whatever, because that was his makeup. But most players don't perform under those long-term guaranteed contracts. That's too much in the player's favor, you know, and so many things can go wrong. And I don't think any of the players really produced up to their, you know, possibility of being a better player. I think they all could have been better players if you had some incentives in there.
A couple more questions before I let you go. And 1990, you're inducted into the New York Mets Hall of Fame. How much of an honor was it for you to be recognized by that organization?
Well, I think at the time when I got inducted, I had every offensive record on the ball club, and to this day, which is quite a few years later, I still have the most games played in the Met organization. You know, I have everything in Shea Stadium. I started at Shea in '64, and then they folded the stadium. But when the stadium closed, I had every record at Shea Stadium: the most hits, the most doubles, most games, etc. And it was a great honor for myself. And then we went over to Citi Field, and eventually I kid David Wright all the time. I said he finally passed my record for most hits. I said, but I had a 20-year slump. I didn't do anything for 20 years. So I held a lot of records for a lot of years. And it's always good to go back there because the players know who you are. And the fans certainly respect what you did for them. And New York, like I said, is a great town to play in. And when you play in New York and you do well, they enshrine you in their own minds. And it's great to talk to the people.
Yeah, and mentioning that, that's got to be a great feeling to know that after all these years, we're in 2021, and that when you look back on your career, you are still considered one of the fans' favorite of all time.
Well, you were there so long, and people grew up with you. That's the thing. And so the parents talk about you, the grandparents talk about you, the young kids today, they might not recognize you in the beginning, but after hearing their parents and grandparents talk about you, they look up the records and they follow you. And it's fun to see their faces when they look at you. Obviously you're a lot older now. Your hair has turned a little gray. Well, I should say a lot gray. But they look, you were a player. I said, yeah, in my other life, but it's always fun to talk to the people. And I still do a lot of things public relations wise. This has been a slow year for everybody. But I guess being in the Zoom business, everybody's able to do some things. And I've done some Zoom appearances, at different homes. The Med Alumni Association hooks us up with a lot of the senior citizen facilities and the older people, and we get on the phone and we kid with them and we have a good time. And most of them are real old Met fans. They're great to talk to. They're great to be with, and I enjoy entertaining them for a few minutes.
Now, Eddie, my last question, I was going to ask you this earlier. I want to wait till the end. We talked about Shea Stadium. We talked about Citi Field a little bit. A lot of people don't realize that when the Mets first existed, they played at neither of those stadiums. It was the Polo Grounds, if I remember correctly. What was it like? There's a nostalgic place, the Polo Grounds. What was that like the first couple of years?
Well, it was a difficult ballpark for me because right center and left center was 420 feet, I think. Dead center was 480, and so the pitchers worked you away and try to pull the ball, you'd hit it into the gaps, and they'd be long outs. There were only 3 balls or 4 balls hit into the bleachers in the Polo Grounds. I happened to be in the outfield back in those days.
Right, I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Henry Aaron hit one that I chased down, and Lou Brock hit one also that I chased down, and they went into the bleachers 480 feet away. So it was a milestone. I think the only other gentleman that hit a ball in the bleachers was Joe Adcock. So there was 3 balls, I believe, hit in the Polo Ground bleachers, and I saw 2 of them.
Wow. Well, listen, Eddie, first of all, I'm very glad to hear you're doing very well, especially health-wise. I do want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight.
Okay, I'd love to come back when I can get this computer working, and look forward to speaking to your fans. Thank you very much.
All right, you be safe, sir, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was the great Eddie Kranepool, New York Mets. What a great individual he was. Grew up one of my favorite ball players, definitely my favorite New York Met of all time, and what an honor to have him on this evening. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview. Just a great guy. Share this with your friends. I know a lot of good people. I know Ed from New York is on. Louis, you're on. Share this with your friends. What a great guy. And Eddie, it wasn't too long ago, he needed a kidney transplant. He got it. He's doing well. It's just so great to hear from him. A lifetime New Yorker. Just great. And, so we do want to thank Eddie from the bottom of our hearts for coming on this evening. Now, we talked a lot, guys, about our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have about, I'll stay on a little bit later. But, if you haven't heard, the update on Mike Evans is positive. It's very positive. He is day-to-day. He was walking in a pool today, which is a good sign. Obviously, if those of you familiar with knee injuries, that's what they do. It loosens up the knee. There is no structural damage, which is a very, very good sign. How they use him this weekend, if he is able to play, will be the question. Hopefully, the Bucs get an early big lead. They're able to take him out and rest him up for the following game. But, we talked about yesterday's game, and the one thing, now that we're going to talk about is obviously we are playing the Washington football team. This Washington team, as I mentioned before, is not offensively very good. Defensively, they're strong. Got an unbelievable front seven. So it'll be a real good test for us, but we should I don't know, something you drink during these interviews and all of a sudden I guess I talk too much. But you go ahead and it's a team we should beat. The only question, as I mentioned, is going to be our pass defense. But I think this is a game we should prevail. But we can't look ahead, okay? There is only one game in front of us. It is not 2 weeks from now. It is not 3 weeks from now. It is not the Super Bowl. It's the Washington football team. And there's no further than to look, because if you do, you're going to get kicked in the butt and you're going to end up losing. We got to concentrate on this Washington football team, and we should prevail. Now, we talked about yesterday's big win, and I told you before we did the interview with Ed Kranepool that we were going to hear from the coach a little bit. So let's go ahead and hear from Coach Bruce Arians on yesterday's win.
He's on the win. Can you take us through just the swing of emotions from Mike getting that record, which is an NFL record, to what you saw happen in the end zone and any update you may have on him?
Yeah, it was meant the world for him to get that record and then to have an easy touchdown. And, the turf was really slick in the end zones. And just a freaky thing. Knock on wood, we don't think there's any serious damage. We'll know more in the next 24 hours.
Okay, and, if you have to play without him, obviously that would be a horrible thing for him and for you. But Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, I guess, showed today that you still have plenty of receiver out there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Scotty, Tyler, we've got weapons. Obviously, Mike is special. And I kind of put Mike in that Vita category. It's going to take two guys to replace him for sure if he's not there.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we'll go over to Scott Reynolds.
Bruce, congrats on the win. Can you speak to the day that Tom Brady had for you and the fact that you guys didn't even punt once on offense?
Yeah, it was going to be one of those games, and just hated that we got that. It's really, man, it's pissed me off that it called an interception. But he played fantastic. He's been on fire since the open date, and we scored on every possession except that one and the kneel down. So we kicked too many field goals, but that wasn't him. But he's been fantastic.
Bruce, you talked about Brady exceeding your expectations, like from a leadership standpoint, but 40 touchdown passes in his first season under you and your offense without an offseason. Can you just speak to that achievement, setting I guess he set the record last week, but he added to it this week.
I think he broke Peyton Manning's record for being with the first team, throwing 40 touchdowns. I think Peyton had 37. So I know he'll like that. Peyton will be pissed. But, when we first met, that's really what we talked about. The guys that we have and what he could do with the players that we have. Adding Robbie Gronkowski to the mix just helped. But, and I envisioned 40. I really did. When he first signed, it was like, okay, we'll be a 40-10 team. But I was expecting practice. I was expecting OTAs and those things. But what he's done with none of that, especially this last half of the season, is incredible.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, that was Bruce Arians, the coach, talking about his unbelievable, amazing all-time best quarterback, Tom Brady. For those of you that have been listening to our show, I mean, just an incredible performance. Now, I do want to remind all of you that tomorrow night we will be on our Bullseye platform on Facebook. For those of you that don't know, that's a University of South Florida group. We have a show every Tuesday night called Bullseye. And boy, are we honored and privileged tomorrow night to have the Vice President of Athletics, Michael Kelly, joining us on Bullseye. If you're not a member of Bullseye, no big deal. Go to Bullseye Facebook page. It's all capital letters, 2 words, Bullseye on Facebook. And you can go ahead and interact and watch these great shows. So tomorrow night on Bullseye. Then we will be back here Wednesday night. We have not announced. I do have a guest Thursday night. One of the most unbelievable guests a Buccaneer fan can ask for, which I am not announcing yet. We will announce that probably tomorrow night. But as far as Wednesday goes, I wanted to wait to see who we were playing so that we can get somebody that is in relation to that team. So we'll get that fixed up by tomorrow. But Thursday night, we already had that. That's our Buccaneer Day. And we are going to have just an unbelievable guest. I guarantee you won't be disappointed when you find out tomorrow who that is. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself and our sponsor, ApexGiftCard.com, go to ApexGiftCard.com. Type in the word Frankly Speaking. That's right. Frankly Speaking, a capital F. Make sure the words are together, not separately. Frankly Speaking, you'll get 10% off your entire purchase on gift cards. Remember, 1 coupon per use. Want to thank you all so very, very much for joining us this evening on another show of Frankly Speaking Sports. We'll see you tomorrow on Bullseye at 9 p.m. with my good buddy Bradley Lewis.